Hi, everyone. This is Heather Lottinen from the Flourish.Academy. I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Marchik. Hey, Mar.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, where are we at? What are we reading these days?
We are continuing. I think today we're going to wrap up our discussion of The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath. This is an amazing book. If you have not read this, you should read it. It's awesome. We're picking up straight into chapter 9, and Heather's going to take it with a... Okay, listen, Heather talked about poop in the last episode, and now she's going to talk about...
This is a different story.
A different kind of story, but still with gross stuff.
Okay,
so
but not
ahead.
as bad.
Not as bad.
So the title of the chapter is Practice Courage. So that's what we're talking about here. Okay, so he's talking about an experiment that some people conducted with people who were afraid of spiders. So... true arachnophobia. I don't mean like, ooh, I don't like spiders. I mean a very legitimate fear of spiders. Do you have any phobias? Do you have anything like that?
I'm a little claustrophobic. Yeah, I had to take medicine when they did my MRI.
Oh, right.
No.
What about when we did that float therapy?
Well, remember I had to hold the thing open. Like with my foot, I was
Yeah.
kicking the thing open so a little light could come in. Oh. And then I had to put my hand on the side so I could feel that something was there.
Got it.
So, okay.
So I'm not afraid of spiders, but I definitely have a thing about snakes. I hate snakes. But okay, so they're working with people who have arachnophobia. And the goal here was to be able to tolerate being around a tarantula. So they're doing something called exposure therapy. This is about managing fear, and it's a critical part of courage. Okay, so they had 14 graduated steps to get people over this fear. So the tarantula was in a terrarium, so it's, an enclosed container, and step 1 was just to stand 5 feet from the tarantula. That's it. Just look at it, And then they would gradually get them closer. So he outlined step 1, which I just said. Step 3, place your palm against the closed container near the tarantula. Step 7, of course we're skipping some, direct the tarantula's movement with a small paintbrush 5 times. Step 9, let the tarantula walk over a heavily gloved hand. And then ultimately, step 14 was allow a tarantula to crawl on your bare arm. Okay, so 14 steps to get people over their arachnophobia. What was so interesting was, and this goes to the book, he says, how long do you think it took these arachnophobes to reach step 14? That is, to reach the point where they would voluntarily allow a big, hairy tarantula to take a leisurely stroll across their palm. Weeks? Months? Try 2 hours. That was the average time to complete step 14, and astonishingly, all of the participants succeeded. These were people who wouldn't or couldn't get within 10 feet a while earlier. Isn't that so interesting?
Do you think you could do that with snakes?
I mean, I think anything's possible and you could do it. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I want to. I think what's the point? But the point here really for me was exposure therapy. Mm-hmm. Exposure therapy, which is exposing yourself to something that you are either afraid of or you just don't want to do repeatedly so that you can do it. Some other places call it like inoculation therapy, like essentially getting a vaccine against your fear.
I love it. So continuing in the same realm, they start talking about preloading responses to issues or concerns that people have or that you have against trying things and being courageous. So I'm going to continue on page 185. The psychologist Peter Gollwitzer has studied the way this preloading affects our behavior. His research shows that when people make advanced mental commitments, if X happens, then I will do Y, they are substantially more likely to act in support of their goals than people who lack those mental plans. Someone who has committed to drink less alcohol, for instance, might resolve, whenever a waiter asks if I want a second drink, I'll ask for sparkling water. And that person is far more likely to turn down the drink than someone else who shares the same goal but has no preloaded plan. So I was mentoring with a fellow photographer, and she is trying to quit her job, and she needed her husband's support. And I said, okay, well, here's what you're going to do. Because, of course, I'm the taskmaster. And if you want mentoring, I'm going to give it to you. So I said, I want you to come up with every objection to being a full-time photographer that your husband could have, and I want you to write what your response is so that you are fully prepared when he gives you an objection. I'm like, oh, I already know what I'm going to say to that. So this is something I've practiced for a long time. I even have it in my business. Like if someone would contact me and say, I hate my photos, what's my response to that? So I really believe in like preloading responses. I love
Have you
love
always done that? Did you know that intuitively, or did you learn it from this, or?
Not from this. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
because
You've
I
been
did
doing it
that
for a
like
while.
for 4
Right.
years, but this was kind of what we call synchronicity, when like you're doing something like, oh, someone said I could have written that. Why am I not a doctor? And
Whatever. And it affirms you for
Yeah.
sure, because you think, wait, I've been already doing that, and they just affirmed that what I'm doing is correct, because we are not able to respond appropriately in emotional situations. So in the case of your friend and her husband, obviously they can get very emotional. I mean, there's a big connection there. So, and when that happens, your mind tends to get jumbled. So you have to preload those responses. And he calls these implementation intentions. And often the trigger for the plan is as simple as a time and a place. When I leave work today, I'm going to drive straight to the gym, maybe instead of like to Starbucks or something, right? The success rate is striking. Setting implementation intentions more than doubled the number of students who turned in a certain assignment on time, doubled the number of women who performed breast self-exams in a certain month, and cut by half the recovery time required by patients who had received hip or knee replacement. There is power in preloading a response.
And they say this preloading is what's often missing in organizational situations that require courage. So you think about, as entrepreneurs, we're going to have unhappy clients every now and then. So in those situations, you need to be a little courageous, and preloading can really, really help you. And they even say like to set yourself up for success. I read this a lot in Mel Robbins' book, The 5-Second Rule. Just set yourself up in the evening for like a great day. So in the morning, you're not going to say, I'm not going to press snooze, because you're just going to say, I'm going to wake up refreshed and energized and ready to go. I will go work out first thing in the morning. So you're like setting your intention in your mind. So
Okay, I am 100% with you on this, because if you think that when you fall asleep, you are, he says, double more likely to do it. So it's so simple. Why do people not believe us when we say this? Go to bed thinking, I'm going to wake up refreshed with energy. Put your gym shoes or your clothes right there on the floor, so you put them on first. Have a glass of water ready for you. Like, if it's that easy, why are people not doing it?
because I don't think they believe.
Right.
It's hard for them to get it out of their own head
matters.
that it's like, oh, I can do something as simple as that. Because I think we expect these like big, grand, like this is what you have to do and this is what you have to do. And it's these big things that like, they're not monumental. Mm-hmm. It's the little things that matter. Like we talked about this in the compound effect. Like every little thing matters, and it's like step by step by step.
So do it.
So just do it.
And then back to the book in page 190, he starts to talk about the DARE program. Do you remember the DARE program? It was launched by Nancy Reagan in the early 80s. I do remember that, yep. So it was the drug abuse resistance education, and it was a very good thing, but it didn't work the way that they thought it would. It certainly made an impact, of course, but it didn't work according to some of their metrics. And so he's talking about that, and he's saying, why is that true? So in other words, to resist drugs, students need the opportunity to practice courage. So it wasn't a matter of knowing, oh, drugs are bad. It was a matter of practicing courage when faced with the moment. In the book, he says, the hard part isn't knowing what the right thing to do is. The hard part is doing it. There will come a time at a party when a 16-year-old is offered alcohol or marijuana. If they have not rehearsed what they'll do or say in that moment, they are likely to feel their resolve crumble. What teens may not realize is that if they resist drugs or alcohol, they will make it easier for others to resist too. An act of courage can bolster the resolve of others. So I have this marked to actually talk to my daughter about it, because I have a 16-year-old and she just got her permit, so she's starting to drive, and she is a phenomenal, responsible kid. She does not run in the kind of crowds that I am worried about at all, but don't you think it would be a good idea on my part as a parent to read this with her and help her formulate some preloaded responses and some implementation intentions so that when it does happen, because it will, that she is prepared and ready with what she's going to say. I'm actually pretty excited about it.
I think that's going to be very beneficial because I think a lot of parents are from an avoidance. Like, if I don't talk about it, it's
Not gonna
happen. Like, it's going to happen. So I'd rather be upfront and about it than trying to hide from it.
And I think, you know what, reading this and knowing her personality, when I say to her, this is straight from the book, an act of courage can bolster the resolve of others, Ella will take that very seriously because she cares about other people. So even if she's not able to do it for herself, I think that statement alone will give her the resolve she needs because she likes to be a leader and a good influence on her friends and other. I actually hear her sometimes using my coaching on her friends. It's hilarious. I heard her talking to a friend the other day and she's like, you need to raise your standards. Isn't that great?
I love it.
Yeah. So I think that will help her because courage is contagious.
And that's exactly what they say on page 193. It says, courage is contagious, from historic protests to everyday acts, from the civil rights movement to an employee asking a tough question. This is a lesson we've learned. It is hard to be courageous, but it's easier when you've practiced, and when you stand up, others will join you. Think of it. Your moment of courage might be a defining moment for someone else, a signal to them that red is red, that wrong is wrong, and that it can be righted if we stand together against it. That's pretty powerful.
I love that.
So we're going to jump now. Let's see, chapter 10, creating shared meaning. So they're talking about kind of coming together and connections and building deep relationships. And I'm going to just start here from page 212. Laughter is more about relationships than humor. We laugh to tie the group together. Our laughter says, I'm with you. I'm part of your group. In groups, we are constantly assessing the reactions and feelings of the group. Our words and glances are a kind of social sonar. Are you still there? Are you hearing what I'm hearing? Are your reactions like mine? Laughing in groups is another way of sending positive signals back and forth. We are synchronizing our reactions.
I like this information on connection because that's what this is about, creating moments of connection. And really, laughter is a great way to do that. But any way that you can mirror the person in front of you, you know, their expressions, their posture, it's about creating rapport. And rapport builds connection. And doing it through laughter is the best way because then you have this like inside joke or this funny moment that it's just between the two of you and it's enjoyable, fun.
I love those. We have those for ourselves.
We have a lot of those, and they're really funny when we bring them up.
Yeah.
That's about creating experiences together in a history. And those relationships and that connection, it takes time.
Yeah.
It takes an investment, spending time together so that the crazy things happen, good or bad.
Not many people I'd want to take to float therapy.
I know, that was crazy. Yeah, I have some behind the scenes video of that if anyone's interested. Okay, I'm jumping to page 217 where he's talking about purpose and passion, because these are two different things. Purpose is defined as the sense that you are contributing to others, that your work has broader meaning. Passion is the feeling of excitement or enthusiasm you have about your work. So what he's curious about is which one of those is more impactful, I guess. He was saying he was curious which could have the greater effect on job performance. What is your take on this?
Okay, so I've actually talked about this a lot, and I was just telling Heather that we were doing this in my self-love club, but I understand the difference between passion and purpose, okay? And they're two totally different things. People don't understand your passion, but they can understand your purpose, okay? So my passion is boudoir photography. People can't understand why I like to take pictures of ladies without
women,
their
right.
Well, men do, but most women don't. Like my mom was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But she understands my purpose of reaching women and changing women's lives and making them feel better about themselves. So she can understand the purpose, but she can't understand the passion. And the passion is not for everybody to understand. That's for you to understand because it's personal to you. So what we might look like as a job, like, oh, I would hate that job. Well, that's not your passion. That's for somebody else.
Right.
So you have to separate the two, passion and purpose.
Very good.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Page 218, purpose trumps passion. Graduation speakers take note. The best advice is not pursue your passion, it's pursue your purpose. Even better, try to combine both. Passion is individualistic. It can energize us, but also isolate us because my passion isn't yours. By contrast, purpose is something people can share. It can knit groups together. Yale professor Amy Wrzesniewski.
Wow, very good.
That's probably not even how you say that.
You said it with
I tried
confidence,
okay.
yeah.
Said that many people believe they need to find their calling as though it were a magical entity that exists in the world waiting to be discovered. She believes purpose isn't discovered, it's cultivated. And I believe that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I cultivated this purpose.
Yeah, you did.
It's true.
Yeah, you did.
Because I didn't walk through it.
Yeah,
exactly.
It takes time. So on the next page, on page 220, he explores this further. And he's talking about being in a hospital and different people having different purpose in their jobs. So he says they all have purpose, of course, but sometimes it's useful to keep asking why. Why do you do what you do? It might take several whys to reach the meaning. For instance, consider a hospital janitor. Why do you clean hospital rooms? Because that's what my boss tells me to do. Why? Because it keeps the rooms from getting dirty. Why does that matter? Because it makes the rooms more sanitary and more pleasant. Why does that matter? Because it keeps the patients healthy and happy. You know you're finished when you reach the contribution. Who is the beneficiary of your work and how are you contributing to them?
That's pretty powerful.
I love that so much.
We did this again with my self-love club. We went through like finding out your why, like why are you in this club? Why are you trying to like learn to love yourself? And one of my club members was, she decided to share, and we went through this why, because if you read the book, you got to ask like 3 or 5 times. And she came out and just her why was there, or what she was trying to do, and she said, I'm afraid to find out who I am because I'm gonna have to make changes I'm not ready to make. Ooh. And that is like super powerful when someone tries to, make changes they're not ready to, and you're like, oh, well, there it is in my face now. So these whys can really bring out a lot of stuff that's inside that you're not really facing. So, and
it goes deep. Yes. And good for her for even admitting it out loud, because it's the first step is acknowledging it and then figuring out what to do with that. So in the last page in chapter 10, this is page 222, the author said, we did something that mattered today. And so I wanted to start asking myself, or maybe I should ask myself every day, did I do something that mattered today? And when I read this, it was actually a day I read in the evening before I go to bed. I was exhausted on this particular day, and I wrote in my book what I had done that day. So that day, I sat with a very close friend of mine while her husband had surgery to remove a tumor, cancerous tumor on his pancreas. And it was a very long, very terrible surgery, which he made it through, but it was very scary. I sat with her at the hospital. I then drove home and visited an elderly woman from our church who I adore. I spent some time talking with her, which was lovely. I then raced home and set up a dinner for my mom's Bible study group so that I could serve them. And when I got into bed that night, I was exhausted. I was reading this book, and I came to this page. And I felt like, I was so happy, content, exhausted, because I felt like I had done something that mattered. I had served others. It was not about me, because when you try to serve yourself, you will be miserable. Mm-hmm. And when you make it about someone else or something else that's bigger than you, you will feel good. So I felt great, yet exhausted, and I had written in the book, yes, I did something that mattered today. But I need to ask myself that every day. Did I do anything that mattered?
What happens if you just have a ho-hum day?
And that's going to happen. I don't think, every day is about moving mountains.
No.
But did I make a difference in someone's life? Could I have said something just, maybe it's not about all of these activities, but just about a word of encouragement to someone? I think that could matter. That was a big day for me. I was doing a lot of things for a lot of people, but I felt great. But I just wonder if we were more aware of it and paying attention, if we could create those moments where you feel like you impacted someone and you did something that mattered. Every day that you shoot a photo session, you're doing something that matters. And it's so much bigger than the photos. We know that because of why people come to you. So those things, I mean, every day you shoot, you do something. But have you ever, when you read this, did you think about this?
I did. Because I work in a field that's like, it matters. It matters a lot to me and to my clients. And I don't ever, like, my goal, so my marker of success, this is how I define success. Do I feel passion every day?
Yes.
Okay. It's not money related. It's like none of that stuff. It's, do I feel passion? And I feel passion every day. Like, whether, I'm sending an email to someone to make them feel better about themselves, or having a photo shoot, or doing a mentoring session, like, I want to feel passionate about what I'm doing and making a difference in people's lives. And I think
you do. You're very encouraging.
I think you're good at that too. You, every time I hear from you, you're always making a difference, or yelling at me, and I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. It's about being aware.
What do you know?
Yeah. It's about being aware, which I think is the first key. Being aware of what you do that makes a difference.
Yes.
Okay, moving on to chapter 11, which is Deepen Ties. I'm going to jump to page 244 and page 245. He has deepening ties. He has this series of questions that you could sit down with someone and ask them these questions to deepen the tie. Okay, these are not questions like, how's the weather? How was your day? Did you go on vacation this year? These are questions like, given the choice of anyone in the world, whom would you want as a dinner guest? Or what would constitute a perfect day for you? So he has these questions listed, and they're actually pulled from Art Aron's 36 questions. They become famous. So if you Google it, you can find it. And Mara and I are actually planning an episode in the future where we do this. But having these connections and deepening ties, it has to be intentional. So it's not something that's just going to happen if you think you're just going to sit around and grow closer to your spouse. You're not. But if you ask questions like this and you can really talk and think about it, you can really deepen those ties.
I always like to ask the question, like, people say, like, oh, what do you do? I hate that question. Why do you do what you do? Which naturally people will say, oh, I am this because, so I don't ever say, what do you do?
You don't leave it at that. You certainly don't leave it at that.
No, it's not. No, that doesn't get you any deeper with people. Okay, as we wrap up, Heather, do you want to give everyone an actionable strategy?
I do. Okay, so I'd like to ask you guys, what's your tarantula? Is there something that you are afraid of or avoiding? Number one, you need to name it. Something that you're afraid, that you need to do. Okay, the arachnophobia thing may be a little silly, but there's something in your life that you need to do. What is one step you can take to move forward towards that? I work with a lot of photographers, female specifically, who are afraid to put their work out there because they fear being criticized. And there's no greater fear than the fear of being judged. I understand that. But if you're one of those people, and I know that you're out there, then what would it take for you to just take one photo, a photo that you love, and post it in the Flourish.Academy community group, which is a very safe place for some feedback, and just see what happens. It's not going to kill you. I understand the fear, and it's very real, and it can even be visceral. But if you do it, it's exposure therapy. You do it once, you get a little more brave, a little more courageous. You do it again, and then all of a sudden new or different opportunities open up for you. So the strategy is name your tarantula. What's the one thing you're afraid to do? And if you could let us know what that is with a comment or a question, if you think like, here's my fear and I'm not sure what the step is, we can help you.
Sharing makes it real.
It does.
So,
it does.
If you really want to experience changes in your life, you have to put it out there. One, again, makes it real. Two, it's called accountability.
Right.
One the other, and I love so much.
Yes.
So, okay, final thoughts on this book.
This is, to me, the must read.
This is a must read. This is on my list. This is like one of my favorite books.
The power of moments. And if you're thinking, well, I don't have a business or I'm not in business, you have a family.
Yeah.
You have a family.
And the moments they share with you matter quite a bit. So, thanks so much, everyone, for listening. Heather, how can everyone support this awesome, amazing podcast?
Share it with your friends. You know what I love? We were talking about one of our listeners. Her name is Brittany.
Brittany. Hey, Brittany.
She is so awesome. You know why? Because she shares on Instagram every Tuesday our episodes. If everybody did that, can you imagine the people it could impact? Listen, and Mara and I don't think for a second this is about us. We don't. But it could impact someone in their legacy far more than any of us could realize. So if you would share it on your social channels, that would be fantastic.
You sound so fancy.
Social channels.
Social channels. You think you're hip or something?
Not really.
No, you're not.
And if you'd like to watch the video, you can check us out at Flourish.Academy. That's the YouTube channel. And if you'd like to purchase this book or any of the books that we discuss in the podcast, if you could use our Amazon link, that would be really helpful. Just helps offset some of the costs associated.
Thanks so much, everyone, for listening. We'll catch you next time on the Flourish Academy podcast.